All right, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Irvin, also known as Kuboman. Today, we are going to explore Microsoft Lab. So, what is Microsoft Lab, and what is a computer lab to begin with if you've never, worked on something like this? So, computer lab is simply an environment in which you practice IT on how to configure and troubleshoot different types of computers. So that being said, you can download a computer lab from Microsoft that will allow you to install these virtual machines. You can have a computer lab in many different ways. They can be actual computers and they can be on a physical network, meaning that they're, physically connected with cables or they are connected on the same network with Wi-Fi, this and that. And that way they would share the same and common resources that are available on that network. Or you can do what I did here, and if you have a computer with enough memory, processing power to run virtual machines that are considered a computer lab. And so this is now an environment in which they sit and stand in a common network environment. So in this case, it's a Hyper-V type of environment for which every computer has, every Microsoft computer has. You can install Hyper-V, or sometimes comes pre-installed with Hyper-V. You just have to activate it. Actually, I take that back. You have to activate it. So this is located in, what was it called? The features, turn on Windows features on or off. So this is your first step in setting up this computer lab that you'd want to use. And here is the option here where it says Hyper-V. You have to make sure that this is checked and that these all subsequent parts of it are also checked. You would select OK. It would download and install Hyper-V on your computer, and you would have to reboot the computer, and that would be that. That would be the first step of it. Now, before you can install a computer lab that's downloaded from Microsoft, which by the way looks like this here. Here is the downloaded version of it. Downloads. And here it is. This is just unzipped and install version of it. But basically you would get it and you install it, and when you download it, actually I should say it's 20 plus gigabytes, but once it's configured, unzipped and set up, it's around 154 gigabytes. So this is where it's installed. So you would download it, and within the same environment, within the same folder that you have it in, it will install these virtual machines, and these are all of them. So let's see here, 4, 8, 9. So there are 9 virtual machines that it would install, and it would create the folder within the same folder where you have your downloaded virtual machines, or it's basically just the setup you run once you unzip it. It would install and create this folder, and if we go inside of this folder, you can see the virtual disk images for all of these virtual machines that are installed. And here it is. For example, let's see if we can find this first one. I don't know, it's called, the name of the computer on the network, this is what it shows up as, is HYD-client1. And here it is. Here is the hard disk image that it created, meaning that it's a virtual disk that it created this virtual machine on, and that's where it's running, and this is where it created this virtual disk drive. Same thing with 2, 3, and 4, obviously here, and then we've got the other ones which are in here as well. And here is that setup file that I was telling you about. It's going to run it and install it all within the same environment. All right, so that's the basics of what happens. But before you can run this, make sure, before you run that setup that I showed you, make sure that your Hyper-V is set up with the correct network setup. So here's what I recommend. Once you have this is the name of the computer that the Hyper-V is installed on, and this is what it's going to look like for you as well. except they will have the name of your computer in here instead of mine. That's my computer's name is called just Stream. But you need to set up the virtual network for this first. And then select Virtual Switch Manager. So here you need to create a new virtual switch, a virtual network. A switch in a network speaking environment is basically a device that controls connection between the computers on your network. So you'd say you have 5 different computers and they're all connected with wire or wireless. You need a switch that would control this. In a business environment, you see a big switch with a bunch of physical cables and whatnot, usually Cisco or whatever. But at your home, it'll be like your router or whatnot. Now we are creating a virtual version of it that it's going to control everything that's happening within our virtual machines that are part of our lab. So all of these computers, virtual computers, need to have a virtual network set up. So this is why we need to set this up. Again, you right click the computer name that you have, and then you go to your virtual switch manager, and here's the one I have set up right now that I'm using. I just named it new virtual switch, and I set it up to be external network, and then I selected my wireless card as the main connection to the physical world, to the real world that you're using as your connection. So whatever your physical computer is using, and here you can see the 2 different options. Here's my physical connection, which is this adapter, and here's the wireless one that I'm using. I'm mainly using the wireless one because the computer that you're looking at right now is all connecting over wireless, and I'm using a remote desktop to connect to it, and it's not connected to a mouse, keyboard, or a monitor. It's just my computer that's sitting anywhere at home, right? So make sure you can select your main connection, whether it's physical or wireless, for your computer, so that way it has access to not just virtual network but also external network, which is the internet, right? So you want your virtual machines to have access to the internet. And if you select internal, it would only be internal, and these virtual machines will only be able to talk to each other. And if you're experimenting with them, which is fine, that would work fine, except the internet wouldn't work. You wouldn't be able to go to Google. You wouldn't be able to download any updates from Microsoft or anything like that. So this is why I go ahead and select external network. It doesn't matter to me because these are virtual machines that don't have anything super important on them. All right, and just side note, the default is set up like this. And if you set it up to internal, then, if you select defaults, then it may end up being an internal. But I prefer to create a new virtual switch and make it external. And of course, here's the very first selection where you would start off, and you just kind of go through the settings. It's super simple afterwards. All right. So that's that. Obviously, make sure you have enough memory. The memory and CPU being the main factors whether this will run properly. If you have a computer that's still using those old magnetic type of drives and not solid state drives, you're going to have a rough time running these things. It's going to be super slow. But for example, aside from the hard drive requirements, in my opinion, and of course you need enough space on them, as we've talked about previously, RAM is a big deal, even if you have multi-core CPU. And just for example, this is an old computer, and I will show you right now what it has when it comes to the CPU. And you can see my CPU is just about maxed out, just trying to run everything here. But here are some of the stats. This is an old computer, by the way, but I do have 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is bare minimum in my opinion. And then I do have a CPU, which is an i7, old i7, with 4 physical and 4 logical cores, meaning that it's hyper-threading. It's i7-4770K. And anyways, it has 4 physical cores and 4 logical cores, but logical processors in total are 8. So it's 4 with hyper-threading, which makes it 8. So basically, virtual virtually speaking, or I should say usability speaking, I guess, you can use 8 cores, right? 8 cores in my setup, and that is bare minimum in my opinion. But you could potentially, run a couple of instances with less cores and with less memory. In this case, if you want to run more than one client, here I have two, and I have two just regular computers. The client one and client two are regular computers. This is a server, CM-1 for the name. It says it's content management. So this has things that are used to install software using SCCM. And I have videos on this too. We'll explain what that is a little bit later. And here is another server, DC1, means the main controller one. And this is all named from the Microsoft themselves. This is how it comes as a package for this lab. And it's also running the main controller, meaning Active Directory, users and computers, group policies, and etc. So this is that's running on these two computers. So content management, this is where all the software is coming from, where it's installed from, where it's being controlled from using SCCM. And then we have the main controller, which is using our account logins, authentication of the computers on the network. All right. So let's go ahead and just kind of quickly talk about, before we log into these computers and these virtual computers, about memory here. These are automatically, I have it set up to automatically use up memory that is available, but sometimes you would want to limit this if you don't have enough RAM. Right now, first one here is taking up 2.5 gigabytes of RAM. Same thing roughly for the second one. And you can see that our content management is using 5. And you can limit this if you want. But otherwise, if I was to start this third one, it's going to give me an error and say, you are out of memory. And you can see here an error occurred while attempting to start this virtual machine. And it says unable to allocate 2048 megabytes, which is 2 gigabytes. And it says insufficient system resources exist to complete this exist to complete the request. So not enough memory, but not enough RAM. And it literally tells you unable to allocate 2 gigs of RAM to make this one run, because we've literally maxed out our memory. So keep that in mind. Just briefly here, you can see that my memory is maxed out when it comes to usage. It's using 15 out of 16 gigs, and obviously I need that 1 gig to run my main computer for it to process at all. But yeah, if I was to shut down the content management one right here, I could launch this one. So let me go ahead and turn it off. And then if I start this one, it will start now because it has freed up those 5 gigabytes of RAM, and now you can see that it's just running. It's just running. But I don't need that many for demonstration, so I'll go ahead and I'll turn off a couple of them and run our content management one just to show you what's happening with these virtual machines, or with this lab that it's being set up, and what the purpose of it is, and what you have available, and what you can learn from these things. All right. I took a little sip of my coffee just to kind of refresh my throat. I'll go ahead and turn this one off again, and I'll turn my content management one off. The reason I'm only running these two servers, because they're the most important and most relevant, in my opinion, to the level of IT that I'm teaching. Okay, while this thing is starting up, let's go ahead and look what's inside our client one. These computers should automatically be joining our domain system, or our domain itself. So these computers are joined to our domain, and let's go ahead and talk about to see how it looks like compared to a regular computer. So I just double clicked on that, and it is now going to connect to it as if it was a remote desktop, because this is how these things are set up, and they're virtual machines. And I mean, how else would this function, right? So they have to be virtual desktop connections. So depending on your computer, it may take a little bit to log in or pull up. May not be as fast as this one. Mine was a little bit faster here because the machine is already running. You can see its uptime, You can see its uptime here on the right is 18 minutes. So you had plenty of time to boot up and load Windows operating system. Right now it says administrator, right? So right now I'm logging in as local administrator on this computer, and we will go ahead and demonstrate on how to log in with domain credentials. And for that to happen, for that to work, computer has to be joined domain. So let's go ahead and just log in as a local administrator. By the way, the password for this is, and I'll show you to you, it's no secret here. What it is a password that is password, but it's spelled funny, and it's not me telling you this is just something you can Google, and it's P@SSW0RD. So that's our password here. I don't think this will let me. I think these virtual machines need to be set up for copy paste to work, but yeah, it doesn't work. So that's okay. I'm just going to manually type it in, P@SSWORD. If you need a link to this, I'll leave it in the first comment if you want to download this. So check that out and leave a comment while you're there, please. I'd really appreciate that. So here is our virtual machine. So the first thing you see here is obviously, well, let me just kind of go back to minimize this here. So this is the desktop just to show you that it's working, and going back to this command line. So what's doing right now is installing, the machine itself is resetting itself. Every time you reboot these computers, they reset themselves. They do a reset, and they install content management client, which is SCCM, and it's also called Software Center. And it's right now it's trying to install it, but it hasn't finished. And for that to work, for this to actually fully succeed, your content management server needs to be running as well. So this won't happen. But if you don't want the computer, if you do not want the computer to reset every time you reboot it, then you turn off the content management server. But if you just want to, reset it, and don't worry, you don't have to reboot the computer all the time. You can just, whenever you shut off the instance, you can tell it to save the state, and it's right here. If you save the state of it, it will save whatever is there. It doesn't have to reboot in the sense. It will just go back next time you connect to it to where it was left off. All right, the save is complete. I'll go ahead and start it again, just so you can see that it says here restoring. You saw it real quick. It says restoring virtual machine, and it will restore it to where it was, where we left over. So now, when I go back in with our password, it's going to take us back to where we left off. So let's go ahead and tell the computer itself, the machine itself, to restart, just so we can see what is happening here. Try to make this a little bit bigger for you. These things like to constantly change in Windows size once they're rebooting and trying to reset. But here it is. This is kind of looks like a regular computer, right? Kind of booting up, except it said Hyper-V instead of HP or Dell or whatever is that computer that you normally use. And let's go back to log in. Now the machine itself has restarted or rebooted the operating system. And now that command line, you don't see it right now, but it will come back and try to reconnect to our, I'm just going to put it here on the side, to our content management server, which is back up and running. So we will see that progress happen. There it goes. I'm going to minimize this here. So it says here literally rebuild PC, and it's a script that it's running, and you can tell where it's located. It's here. It's users administered document. It's a PowerShell script, and now it's trying to install it, and it says installing the client for this here, and we can see that happening. If I open up a task manager on the virtual machine, you can see it that the client is being installed. You can see obviously the usage of it. but you can see that CCM setup is being installed, which will install our software center application that will allow us to install and packaged software that we want our computers to have. And obviously I have videos on this in detail as well if you want to learn about SCCM. They're great videos. I have them on my channel. So just go to youtube.com/Kobuman, Cobuman, and just type in a search on my channel, type in SCCM, and you will see detailed videos on and demonstration on how software is packaged and being installed on these computers. But anyways, to wrap this part of it up, that's what it's doing right now. It's installing the client, which is called Software Center. Let me see if it's there yet. Software Center. It's not there yet, but it is installing it right now. And after that's installed, it will be able to install other things on it. All right. So we'll leave that running. And again, or like I said, we will go ahead and check to see if this computer is part of our domain that we have running, which is controlled by our domain controller, which is this server here, DC1. And that's running, which is good. It's been up for 26 minutes, which is great. So let's go ahead and check to see if our computer is part of a domain or not. So there are a couple of different ways to go about it. The easiest way is to right-click the Start menu and select System. This will give you basic information about your computer and also will tell you whether your computer has joined a domain. And here is the name of our computer. It's Client 1, and this is a full device name, and it says here client1 dot corp corp .contoso.com. This tells us, well, this is a domain, right? Just like google.com, microsoft.com is a domain name. This is also a domain name, and this tells us that this device has joined our domain that's called corp.contoso.com. This is also known as fully qualified domain name. So that's what that is. Now we know that this computer has been already joined to the domain. And if it hasn't, the way to join it, and you would need administrator, domain administrator login as well to join it, the domain. You would go to Advanced System Settings. So you just scroll down a little bit here, Advanced Systems Settings. And then from here, you would select computer name up here. And then here, where it says here to rename this computer or change its domain or work group, click Change. By default, your computer that you buy at like a store or order it online, anything, by default, they might try to join a work group. Usually they don't, but you can join a work group. Basically, work group is if you have multiple computers at home and you want them to be connected easily, you would create a work group. You would just basically come up with a name called My Home. And every computer that you have that's connecting to the same Wi-Fi, to the same network, to the same internet that you have at home, you can join them all to My Home. Make sure that sharing is enabled, private sharing is enabled on your home, and then you'll be able to see all your other computers. So that's not really a domain per se, but it's basically joining same work group, which basically just allows network sharing across those computers that you have that are part of the same group. Domain is just a large version of that with ability to much more control computers that are part of that domain. And if you don't have it, if you want to join it, you just need to know the name of the domain, and then you would select OK, and then it will ask you for your administrator login, domain administrator login, to make these changes, to join this computer. All right, so we now know it's part of this domain. Okay, but now we know that we are logged in. We're not logged in as using a Microsoft account per se. This is a local account. I know it says here Microsoft, but it's actually a local administrator account. This is not a login ID that was provided to us by the domain controller from Active Directory at all. This is something like you would get from like when you start working somewhere, you get your login ID and password. That is a domain login. It's not a local account like this administrator that we're logged in here. And we can look at this. If I right click Start menu here and I go to Computer Management, we can see where this administrator account is, but let me show you the local, how it's locally created. If I go to this PC here real quick and I go to users, you can see the administrator account is this. This is what we're logged in as, and it's just a local administrator account. That's what that is, and we'll see that change once we create or use a different login in Active Directory. But here is our computer management. Here's our computer management, and to see where that local account, the administrator account is, we would go to local users and groups, right? We know this. And then what is it? Administrator, what is it? Well, you could assume that it's a user, right? And you'd be right. And here it is. This is a built-in account, and this was what this is. Here are local accounts that are locally created, and one of them is administrator. But the reason this one is administrator and it has administrator rights, meaning ability to make changes, any changes on the computers, is because it's part of a group, a local group called administrator. So this is users. Here's our local login ID. This is what we're using right now. ID by itself, you can call administrator, but doesn't mean that you will have the ability to make changes on the computer at all. You can restrict it. It doesn't matter that you call it administrator unless it's part of this group. For it to have the ability or function of administrator, it needs to be added to this group here, and it's a group. So it's a group of IDs that will have ability administrator privileges, meaning ability to change everything. So if I double click this, you can see that our local account administrator is part of this group. And it says here what the point of this group is. It says administrators have complete and unrestricted access to the computer or domain, right? Depending on which one it is. This one is local, but this one here is a group that is a domain group. And it says they're part of our domain. That's why it says corp, and it says domain admins. This means that any administrator domain accounts that are part of this group will also be part of this local administrator group, so they have the same privileges as administrators. So again, we have local administrator that's part of this administrator. It's like an account called administrator that is part of administrators group on the local level. Means again, full privileges, unrestricted access. And then we got corp domain admins, right? And anything that's part of a group called domain admins on our domain controller will have the same type of access. So any account that's put inside of a security group called domain admins that are part of our corp domain will have same access as local account here. All right, so let's see how that looks like. We'll have domain. Here's our domain controller. Here is our Active Directory user accounts. So just so you know, here's a domain controller. I have it running here. And let's go ahead and just do a search here. We can see that this is expanded. This is OU. These are OUs, organizational units. They can all have their own settings and restrictions, if you will. But in order to find our account, we've logged in as lab admin to this computer. And I know that lab admin is one of those domain accounts. But let's go ahead and what was it called again? Domain admins. Let's go to look for this security group called domain admins. Domain admins. Searching for domain admins. Okay. So every login ID that's part of domain admins, anything that's inside of this, every member of this security group will have full access, full administrator access, unrestricted access, the same way as this local account does. And that's because our security group is part of this local group. And this is how this is replicated across. I hope that makes sense. And if I open up the main admins, we can see how many members are in there, and there should be one. It's called lab admin. So we can log into any of those computers using an account called lab admin, and we will have same unrestricted access as local administrator. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that. Go back to our computer here. I will log out. I will sign out, and I will log in as domain admin. Okay, it's signing out. Okay, other user, and you will not have this option as that says other user unless you're part of a domain, and we can tell that here it says sign in to corp, which is the name of our domain. So I'll go ahead and type in lab admin. Okay, and it's the same password as the other one. Okay, and now we are logging in to this computer as a domain account administrator, or and you saw how that would function, but it will have the same abilities as that local administrator account. The only time you would not be able to log in into a computer with a domain administrator privileges is if that computer does not have connection to domain. In some cases, if you have previously, or let's say earlier today, you've logged in as lab admin to this computer, and suddenly the computer is off the network and it does not have connection to lab admin, you could potentially log in because it created a local account already. All right, so here is this thing. Again, it's running the same type of script again because we're logging in, and that's fine. It's trying to install this in client for SCCM, which is fine. But you can now see that we're logged in as lab admin. Here it is. And you can see now, instead of just saying local account, it says that it's a part of a domain account. It says lab admin at corp.contoso.com. And just to prove it to you that I have full privileges, I can literally delete or run or install anything I want. So let's go ahead. And just run something that's in here. I don't know, a random thing. Actually, yeah, sure, Edge. And if I right click Edge, for example, and run as administrator, we will get a prompt that will ask us for administrator privileges if I'm not already logged in as admin, but it just kind of let us do it, right? It just kind of let us do it. So that tells you right there that we are logged in as admin with full control of the computer. And I can do this for anything else that's out here. For example, I don't know, let's see what else is installed on here. Program files, not much. PowerShell. Here, let's just pull up PowerShell here. Windows PowerShell, run as administrator, and it just does it. Right? It just does it, right? And it tells you here that is, anyway, that's how that is, right? That's how that works. I hope that's simple enough to understand. All right, so let's continue talking about and creating some new accounts for this. But this is one of those videos where I will have a second part, but I need to know if enough people are interested in this type of stuff. And I can certainly talk about this. And then next weekend, we will have part 2. I wanted to make this video just to give you an idea on how to install your own computer lab so you can start practicing with this type of stuff. I know there's a lot to talk about here, especially when it comes to Active Directory, security groups, this and that. But I already have a bunch of videos on this type of stuff, but I'm just not sure if anybody else would be, if people are interested in more of this type of stuff, right? The only reason I'm doing this like this is because I already made a bunch of these, but I can create the newest version, which is today, right? Right now it's, let's see, August 9th. that I'm recording this of 2025. And if you want me to talk about more things that may have changed, and a lot of things have changed, I can certainly continue making these videos. Now here's just a basic user. We have test users here. These are just regular users. They don't have any privileges per se. They could be member of other things, other groups, like for example marketing, but these are not administrator groups or anything like that. Marketing is just another security group that has members in it. You can see there are 2 members in here, and test user group, but these are not administrator or anything like that. And we can demonstrate that by logging into that computer as well. And just so that to show you, I'm going to log out as lab admin and then log in as test user 1, just to show you that these are just regular users, and you can also experiment with these. Other user, test user 1, same password, and it will just let you log in as that test user, and it will, you know, just be regular user with regular user restrictions and whatnot. Again, not to ramble anymore, if you want me to continue to make these type of videos, please leave a comment and let me know, so that way if that's the case, if enough people, you know, show feedback and respond to this with likes and comments, and I hate to ask for these things, but how else am I supposed to know whether people are interested in more of this type of stuff? I need feedback, right? And because I want to respect your time, and you want to also respect my time, right? Otherwise, I'm going to try to think of making some other video. And if you have video suggestions as well, I'm also open for that, you know, to create more content. And yeah, there it goes. You can see that I've never used, you know, never logged into this computer before with this other account. And yeah, here it is. It's logged in as test user 1. Again, you can name these users whatever you want. You can also log in with whatchamacallit. Here's our lab admin that created a folder, and here is our test user. But you can also log in with a email address. I don't know why I struggled to say that, with email address as well, and the same password nowadays. Oh, it looks like this failed. Well, we can try to fix it. CCM setup. So it failed to install. We can troubleshoot this in the next video if that's what you want. You know, just let me know. All right. I hope you have a good weekend and, you know, nice August, I guess. And people returning to school, I wish you best of luck. And I hope this video helps you all. Take care. Bye.